Hey everybody, it's Doom here from Dungeons and Doom Biscuit. My voice is sort of back for now. I'm still working on modular building fronts for a backdrop. So let's get going on that. So I'm going to try to speed this up and do it a little easier. So I have everything pre-cut again like I did last time, but this time I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to put all my planking on first and then come back and do trim. Just to speed this up some. And honestly, if I was doing this not on a video, I would not be using super or hot glue. I'd be using just Elmer's or clear glue or white glue. I mean. And all I'm doing is leaving a tiny bit of a gap, just so it's another texture when I'm painting it. So yesterday, Lady Doom and I went to a game store about 35 minutes from here. It's in a mall, and they moved into a larger location even, so they must be doing pretty well. And with their prices, if people are paying them, they are. But one of the products I saw was, I think it was called Dungeons and Lasers. And it was this giant tavern, and it was 200 and something bucks. And I had a lot of thoughts about this, and of course when we got out of the store, I let him loose on Lady Doom, who sometimes gets irritated with my firm opinions on things, and sometimes she agrees. This time she agreed. The price tag on this was ridiculous. First of all, how many times are you fighting in a tavern? And why would you have a tavern like that? Because I would have to make every tavern look about the same. And maybe it was modular to the point where you could change it, but the way it looked is you were supposed to build it a certain way. That's the way it looked, in the packaging. And it just irked me. So I think the next thing I'm going to do, if you guys remember the giant saloon I built, which it wasn't giant, but the saloon I built that was, appropriate scale. Because let's be honest, buildings weren't as big as people think. The technology and the resources available and the amount of money it would cost to build a building for the average peasant or even a lesser shopkeeper, these were not millionaires. These were peasants. Or, even if they're in a slightly higher social caste, there were going to be very few. Now, when you got more into Victorian, yes, but when you're in medieval times, there are going to be very few enormous buildings. And in my world, peasants live off of a gold a day, which is really high. That's just in my world, where the economy is a little friendlier than most. Because then you can't justify spending 15 gold on a longsword or whatever. I'm not saying that's how much mine are. I don't even know off the top of my head how much a longsword is. Actually, they're called arming swords in Tomorrow Comes Doom, because the traditional longsword and the arming sword are two different things. I tried to get away from some of the D&D things I don't like about weapons and focus on the reality. The Messier was very commonly used for a large point in history, yet it's not even mentioned in D&D. Unless you have one of the older arms and equipment guides, I do believe it's mentioned, but I think that was a second edition one, which I'm pretty sure I have that. And it might even be in the third edition arms and equipment too, now that I'm thinking about it. Doesn't matter. The bottom line is, D&D ignored significantly important historical weapons to include stuff, I don't know. Doesn't matter. The bottom line is, taverns are expensive to build. Giant taverns are probably rare. Not every tavern was an inn, and vice versa. You just have to more commonly, that stuff would be found outside of towns in what you call a drover stop, which would be where the wagoners, and they would have stables for the horses and security, and that would have been your bigger structures that generated more income, because people that had to protect their caravans and their carriages and stuff would have had to use these. So in my world, that's the standard, the industrial standard. Need a thin one for that top so I have less to cut off. Okay. Okay, something like that. Then I'm just going to come down this side and snip off any excess like that. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. I'm going to save all these little pieces for later in the craft in case I need them. You never know. I'll set them off here in the corner. Oh, I missed a little bit there. Alright, so that's going to be the front of my building. Let me blow my nose. Now I want to do my my windows and doors and stuff. So I use 2 pieces of Jenga block together to make a door, and it's actually kind of a hefty and big door, but it's a good size. So I'm just going to take a piece of the scrap foam I had left over from my cutoff. Oh, that's actually pretty decent. Alright, so all I'm going to do is drag that up a little bit to simulate where I want the bricks above the door to stand. Then I'm going to just drag a thin line through all that, like that. Get a pen. Then I'm just going to kind of divide my door into some planks real quick. That one's kind of big. I'm just going to do one more over here to shrink that up. Not every plank is the same size on that door, that's all. And they probably wouldn't have been. Now you could use a toothbrush or a wire brush or something to add more texture to your door if you wanted. I don't want to. Oh, a little bit of craziness there. Nothing I can't fix with some super glue or hot glue. Okay. I'm gonna mount that on. Oh, you know what would be cool? Might be cool. Hold on. Where's those pieces at? I had some pieces I cut for something else that I thought would be a neat outcropping on a building. Maybe this is that building. Let's check it out. These are cut just a small thing to make. It was for another building I was going to do, but I wasn't going to do a video on it. But now that I'm looking at this, this might be the perfect building for this. Okay. Yeah, that would be neat. Let's do that. So I have some smaller popsicle sticks up, or not popsicle sticks, I'm sorry, pieces of cardstock up here. We're going to steal these from that other project and use them here. This is not what I set out to do, but I think this is going to be neat. Yeah, I think this is going to work out just fine. Tomorrow is Memorial Day. I think I've talked about this in previous years on the channel. I always feel weird, especially as a veteran, having cookouts and stuff. That being said, I'm married and I have a family. So, of course, no matter how I feel, we're having a cookout. But it should be a time, to me, to remember the people that didn't come back. I was blessed I came back. There were many that did not. So for me, it feels like a weird stretch to be celebrating a day where we're supposed to be remembering people died and sacrificed themselves. Now, am I over the top with that? Probably. Am I being a little dramatic? Yeah, most likely. But we're at a point where veterans are not, I don't know. Just ignore me. I don't know things and stuff. Let me get some scissors. Get that close to the edge there. Oh, I ripped some of that off. It'll be alright. Clean this up. Yeah. We'll do these sides here. I don't know if I have enough of these little strips cut. Yes, I might. Again, I wasn't ready to do that project. I just kind of like, I was cutting stuff for this project, and I was like, oh, let me cut some shit for the other one, too. Having trouble grabbing shit. My fingers don't work like they used to. Okay, so. What I want to do on this one is I want to kind of line these up to the outside the best I can. The older I get, the more I find myself having opinions on things too. Like, I used to be like, well, that doesn't really affect me. Or, I could never be in that situation, so why do I care? And as I get older, I'm like, you know what, mother darn it, you son of a gun. You know what I mean? Oop. In another life, I farted. I might have enough of these. If not, I can cut a couple. No biggie. Okay. There's a sense of entitlement in the world, and I don't know how to deal with it. I mean, I know how to, on a professional level, I know how to deal with it, but I mean, like, when I hear stuff that bothers me, inside I get, like, convinced that nobody cares anymore, that nobody's accountable anymore, and that the world has turned into something I don't recognize. You know, like, I had a guy tell me that people join the army because it's a trap for the poor. You know what? I was poor. And you know what it did? It gave me an opportunity I wouldn't have had otherwise. It taught me a lot of useful skills. It taught me how to be a leader. It taught me how to tolerate things that are hard to tolerate. It taught me how to suffer with a little bit of grace. So yeah, it might be a trap for the poor, but it's also an amazing tool to give people a chance that might not have had a chance otherwise. It gave me a skill set my parents sure as hell didn't give me. It definitely taught me some responsibility. So I would counter that people that talk shit on the military and say that it's a trap for poor people. Why don't you look at the societal traps that were created in the 50s, 60s, and 70s for poor people, and look at that as your problem, not the military, dicks. Probably shouldn't talk it like that. Probably just lost 30 viewers, and I only had 5. Oh well. You guys aren't staying for my amazing political commentary or my life lessons anyways, I'm sure. Alright, so that's going to be the that little outcropping piece with the door on it now. Let me get this stuff off to the side and throw it up in the corner in case we need them. And then that's where the door is going to sit. And I think that's going to look cool. Okay, whoops. Let's get that on there in such a way, like that. And that's going to sit on there, somewhere around there. Cool. Yeah, I like that. I need a roof piece. I don't know. I had this extra. That's going to be way too big. But we can cut that down and make it work. So let's do that real quick. This will be the roof for that. Okay. So I'm going to set that off to the side of this so I don't lose it. Alright. We need some windows. We might want to glue this on first though. So glue that on. I'm going to try to stick to the inside here. It's going to be like that. Something like that. Then that's going to go on there like that. I had to do some shingles on that. And let's do a window here. So let's get this center piece. Let's make our window about yay wide. The outer frame of our window will be smaller than the outer frame of our door. We'll make our window square. And I'm just going to cut a thin groove in all the way around to be my stonework. Just like that. I'm going to cut a groove down the middle here and use that to make my what do you call it? Stones. Lost my pen. There it is. Cool, 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 cool. Something like that. Booyah. Alright, do I need windows up here? Well, no, not really. And would a warehouse have windows up there? Yeah, actually, the reality is it would. It would have windows up there, and I'll tell you why. Because natural lighting was the primary lighting source for poor people. So, we'll make a couple more of those real quick. And you know that won't be real quick because making these isn't quick. Dude, why am I going to try to cut 2 of those at a time? That's stupid. We know exactly how that's going to go. Let's do these a little quicker. See that noise? That's the noise of. You can tell I didn't eat yet. My hands are starting to shake worse than usual. Ugh. I still have an appetite. Do 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 do. And you'll hear a lot of people say shit about the Army they don't understand too, or any branch of the military, I'm sure. Like, I have people that want to tell me shit about the effects of combat. Yeah, you know what? I understand. I've been in combat, but you don't know if you haven't been there, and it's very easy to judge it from the outside. And no, undoubtedly, we don't have the best system to catch people that are having mental disorders from it. PTSD is more prevalent because we spend less time making sure our soldiers get breaks than we used to, though I hear that's getting better now. But it used to be 6 months deployments were pretty common. Then at some point it turned to year and then getting stuck for over a year. And that's where you start seeing people that get real deep-seated trauma, because if you're not getting adequate rest to decompress and to process what's going on and what you're living through, obviously, in any situation, not just in combat, any unpleasant situation, that's going to be bad, right? This is not rocket science. This is pretty common thought. So yeah, we don't have a good net in place to catch the people that are struggling. I know. I know firsthand, and I know from other people as well. But I'll tell you, combat has prepared me to deal with the largest amounts of fuckery that can be dealt with in the long run. So I want to get my second floor kind of over that one accurately there. And in the civilian world, the amount of fuckery I deal with is top notch. Like, I deal with some of the stupidest human beings on Earth on a regular basis. Okay, something like that. Looks pretty even, doesn't have to be perfect. And that's going to be the front of our building. It would be nice to trim it with some wood. Let's get it glued together. And let's trim it with some wood. So for my wood, I'm just going to use more foam, I think. Yeah. I'm just going to use some foam here. I'm going to come down the side. Something like that. Let that cool for a moment. Okay, we see I have a problem here. The gaps are very different. So to make sure I have a gap here, since I can't move those windows, I really wish I hadn't put that on there now. You know what? We're going to take it off. We're going to take it off. And we're going to pretend like it never happened. Oh, come on, you. Okay. Yeah, we're just going to pretend that never happened. We didn't do that. All right, for our sides. We're going to leave these alone. We're going to glue them on in that way, and then we're going to do a thin piece of the foam to cover that joint. That's what we're going to do. Okay? So this one's got some tape, so I'm going to use that as my inside. Whoops. Having trouble hitting my marker. We're just going to set that up like that. Cool. Reinforce that. Nice. Same thing here. Can you see? No, you can't. Okay. I kind of want to reinforce this. So I'm going to make myself a little piece. To glue in there. And if I'm correct, it should fit something like that. Yeah, all right. Oops. And I can just kind of get that back into place. So there's the front of my building, and like I said, I'm not going to mess with the sides. I do need to cover these up though. So what I want to do that is I want to get one of my thicker pieces of this shit. That's not a very good one. I don't really have any good thick ones. Damn me. Or I could use two of the thinner pieces, really. That would work. I use two of these thinner pieces. They're about the same. And I'm going to cover it like that, okay? Yeah, that'll work better. And that'll help cover up that seam. Whoops. Okay. And we'll let that cool. Just gonna snip that off. Just like that. Okay. And then we want those to look like timbers. And I'm just going to half-ass carve it down with a knife. You could really get in there and rough these up a little bit if you felt the need. Something like that. And if you didn't feel the need, that's fine too. Also, to make sure your edges aren't real smooth, you could consider, or aren't real crisp, you could consider rubbing your finger or any kind of thing there to get rid of that perfect square edge. Alright, I need a roof for the building, and I cut one. It looks like it's going to be okay. I'm going to snip a little bit of this off. It's a little bit longer than I wanted. I'm just going to eyeball that, which is always a mistake. Never eyeball shit like that. Okay, it worked out good. So to do my roof, I need to cut English. I need to learn English. I need to glue this to a piece of cardstock or something. Cardstock. Alright, I'm going to get that on there real sturdy like that. And that's going to be the roof for the main building. And then remember we had that little piece of roof too. Alright, so make the roof. I'm going to do the same technique I did last time. Let me get a popsicle stick. Actually, you know what? I'm not using a popsicle stick. You could use a popsicle stick. I am looking for something else. What is it? I had a wood carving tool that I used a long time ago to do this. I just don't know where it is. That is going to be what I use. I can't find it. All right. Plot twist, I'm using a popsicle stick, damn it. Okay, so I'm going to start in the middle about right here. I'm going to push in, a little bit of a scooch it over. Okay, and I'm going to come up and just kind of go back and forth, pushing in and creating my roof. Something like that. And then I want to take that in a little bit. And I'm going to come in here just in some spots where there's no definition. I'm going to make my roof a little more interesting, just like that. Okay. And I just noticed my roof is a little bit wider, so I'm going to take a little bit of that off. Just like that. Okay. Oops. Something like that. And then my top roof. We're going to make it the same way. I'm going to start in my middle. I'm going to make my shingles a little bigger because this is a bigger roof. And this just looks like a generically shingled roof. It can be slate or pottery or whatever you need it to be. And this is a faster, a little bit easier way to, if you watch the other videos, you'll see. These don't look bad. Now, I shouldn't do this, but what I'm going to do is attempt to do this. I think that's going to look bad. Maybe. I don't know. Same deal. I'm going to cut into that. Just like that. I'm going to come in here and get some of my less defined areas. There's a lot more less defined areas on this one for sure. Okay. So I'm going to Mod Podge this entire thing in some kind of combination of matte Mod Podge and whatever the hell else. And you do the same. And we'll meet back here after a while for a part 2. And continue on our modular cityscape, background, backdrop, whatever. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell icon, leave a comment, and all the happy crappy that helps the channel grow. And I will see you next time. Bye-bye.